Welcome to the PPM Winter Circle podcast. My name is Hunter, and to my right is Mr. Rodney.
Hey guys.
In the black shirt to my left is Mr. Randy,
Hello.
and next to him in the yellow is Mr. Ricky.
Well, they got me here again.
I know you have some guy comment. Can't you just say hello?
Hello.
And our special guest today is Mr. Ray Cook with American Racer South.
How we doing today, guys? Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you
Glad
coming
to have
down here. Well, the first question we're gonna pop off at you is, obviously your name holds a lot of weight in the racing world, especially around here. How did you get started into racing and, get like involved to do what you want to do and like race?
Well, I don't know how much time we got here, but, when I was a little boy, I had three cousins that raced, and one of them was actually his house right across the creek from where we're at there, but started young, just helping him, getting to go help him wash it mainly. That's really all I done. And then a big thing back then, when you go to the racetrack, they would they let all the cars roll the track in. So that was my highlight of the night, was getting to ride with him in the car, packing the track. And when I got a little bit bigger and more knowledgeable, he might let me drive it by myself, And it was a B cadet car is what they called it back then. But Randy was his name, Randy Cook, and my other cousin Freddie, he raced, and Donnie. I had three of them that raced. But they're probably the ones that got me involved in it first. That's who my mother blames for all this. And but just really loved racing, and from the time I was then, and when I turned 15, my dad bought me a 4-cylinder pony car. Gary Thompson built it for me. That's, a lot of you may not know him. He crew chief for me for years, and currently crew chief for David Payne. But had that. He built the first ever car I had in 1987. Started racing and raced the 4-cylinders for about 3 years, and then got into late models and ran them, until probably the biggest change was when I met up with Cheryl Brown and the Youngblood Concrete days, and they're really the ones that took me out of my little area, of Western North Carolina. And as they say, just the rest is history. But just spent a lot of time on the road and worked like a lot of people, just every kind of job we could work, to keep racing, and done a little bit of everything. My mom and dad owned a floor covering store, so we done that. My uncle had a furniture store, and then we was in the concrete, and I've sold Christmas trees, and worked at election boards, and just, whatever we could do to come up with some extra racing money. No different than a lot of other people, really. And next thing you know, you're 30 years later and you're still doing it,
Yeah, right, yeah. I think the first time we ever met you, got to know you, was with Brownie in the Youngblood deals when we first met you. What kind of car was that? That was a GRT?
That was so the original car was a Barry Wright.
Oh, okay.
And I had a Barry Wright car, and Brownie and Cheryl, when we got to notice, really how we met was we got to notice them when I think I come to Atomic actually for a race, and they was there, and got to noticing that a lot of the races I was trying to go to, they was at. And that's sort of how it got, the communication started. And Brownie said, hey, what we got to do to get Youngblood on that car? And the first Youngblood decal we stuck on it was over the hood in front of the breather. And went from there. The next question was, what would it take to make that car orange? Cause all their cement trucks was orange and white. And I said, well, if y'all own the car, it can be whatever color it wants to be, So, but that's when we purchased a Barry Wright car, and took part of the pieces off my old car and put on that. They didn't buy a complete one, but we immediately started merging stuff together and ran Barry's cars. I believe, till 94. And then we went to GRTs in 95 and went from there. Stayed with GRT all the way till 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And then went to Mastersville and stayed there till 2013 or 14, something like that. I haven't had a lot of different chassis builders, you know, for as long as we've been doing it, but
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I've been fortunate to get to work with a lot of good people.
Yeah, yeah.
What year was it you won the first show?
The first showman was 2000, yeah, at West Plains, and then won it again in 2010 at Wheatland. It was a long spread. I don't know, there's not many that's been able to win it at both places, so we're proud of that.
Yeah, it's a good accomplishment. Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
So as of now, went from, you know, talking about your racing history. When did you first want to start doing like promotion?
So 2004, I think, is when we had the first Showman 100, the first Tar Heel race. And that was a media guy. His name was Charles. He came to me and he said, hey, Tri-County doesn't want to do any super late model races. And he said, man, I just think if you could do it, it would really go over good in this area. And so he really pushed me to do the Tar Heel, the very first one. And of course, we was on the road racing and hard to find a date, as is today. Some things don't change. But I thought it'd be good, really, the only way we could get the drivers we wanted was to maybe try to get them on the way to something.
Yeah.
And so we had the shootout at Dixie Speedway, and so I thought it'd be good to try it on Thursday night before the shootout.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the approach we'd taken, and the very first one we had it was great. We had, Billy Moyer won it, but we had Brian Burkhofer there, Shane Clanton. I mean, we had 37 cars.
Yeah.
And people that had never been to Tri-County, and it was very, very good. One little story I thought was funny, back then didn't have race receivers and didn't have transponders, and the guy that normally scored the races there, they didn't ever have over about 10 or 12 cars, you know. So I'll never forget it. The very first caution we had, I told him on the radio, I said, hey, give me the lineup, I'll line them up. I stand on the back straightaway, and he got back to about 10th and he quit talking. And I was like, okay, I'm ready for the rest of them. He said, buddy, I don't have a clue. I ain't never scored this many cars. And I said, and luckily I looked and it was all riding single file. Wasn't nobody arguing over any positions.
Yeah, right.
And I thought, hey, they look like they're happy to me, let's go. So, you know, it was just, that's what we done. And,
Well, you're lucky you didn't know. You didn't
yeah.
know.
So, but anyhow, had that race and it done really well and just went from there. And then a few years later, Keith and Tater Masters, you know, working with them, and Keith, he's like, Ray, why ain't nobody ever done any of them midweek races like they do in UMP, you know, the Midwest? And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, you've already done one that worked. I said, yeah. He said, what, can you do that for a couple of weeks? And so that started the thought process, and called 10 racetracks, and they all said, well, if you can get the other 9 to do it, we'll do it. So anyhow, all of them agreed to it, but two of the 10 backed out, actually. But we started the Southern Nationals, and that was all a conversation that was just like that, just with Keith and Tater and myself, and we all done it together. And you know, that's 20 years ago. This year will be our 21st year with the Southern Nationals. And found out, I've always knew I had a good wife, but tell you, it was really when I found out how good. After that first Southern Nationals was over, I got home and she said, well, how'd it go? Did you do any good or make any money or anything? I said, I think we all three lost about $2,000 apiece.
Mm.
And she said, well, is Keith and Tater as happy to lose their 2,000 as you seem to be? And I said, yeah, I think they are. That's all she said. You know, just want to know if they was as happy as I was. But you live and learn. But what got me in trouble was I didn't prepare for any rainouts, and we had a couple of them. So that
The learning curve.
the learning curve.
Yeah.
But
On that note, when you took on the race promote, what turned out to be the hardest part about it that you didn't see coming at
you know, really and truly, I felt like I had good relationships with the drivers, and I felt like that's what helped us was because I thought I had a good idea of what they would want, you know, and I never did try to let them, I never did book nothing on the schedule that I didn't want to go do myself. But the biggest thing is just the different promoters. You know, there's such a revolving door in the promotion. So every year it's a few tracks is somebody different, you know, and we talk about this, but the average promoter's about 4 years old. And I would say this, I don't know how many is watching, but if you find a promoter that's made it more than 4 years, you need to pat them on the back,
Right.
whether you like them or not. You
It's
know what I
not a
mean?
common thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel like, you're talking about that when you started that with, the national deal there. When it came about and started there, I feel like it took somebody like you for it to ever work during the week, for the drivers and the, tracks to get behind it. That's just my opinion. I don't know that anybody else, and I guess I'm bragging on you.
Well.
I don't think anybody else could ever done it and it started and made it successful as it is.
Well,
That's my belief.
I appreciate that. It certainly wasn't just me, but it just, you know, from being in business, it takes a lot of good people. And like I say, Keith and Tater was involved there then and their families, and, you know, the racers bought into it and the fans bought into it. That was the thing, you know, because these promoters, they wouldn't keep doing it if they was, you know, if it didn't make sense, you know. And we've been blessed. I mean, every show we've ever done doesn't make money. I mean, some of them lose from time to time, and there's different reasons for that. And you know, in a perfect world, you want the promoter to make money and the series to make money, and the drivers not to be lined up mad at the end of the night. You know, you know, you want everybody to have a good time, and it's hard to pull off, but that's the goal.
Yeah, that's getting everybody lined up.
Yeah.
I tell them a lot of times that promoting deals is a lot like a pastor at the church trying to keep everybody united. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
It's a hard job.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But we was talking there earlier about when you first got here, about you and your pastor talking about the approach.
Yeah.
How you go about things. I guess, what I'm trying to ask is how do you figure out how to approach different things? What do you base that on?
Well, I mean, I don't care to tell you. I mean, I try to pray about it. I mean, and a lot of times, if I can do that, the good Lord will show me things that I'm not smart enough to come up with, you know. What he's talking about was dealing with people, and I told him that me and my pastor, we talk about approach a lot, and the illustration we use is a guy that's flying a plane, you know, and if you know, most everybody's rode a plane at some point or at least watched them, and, you know, if they take a real slow approach and come down into that runway and make sure everything's lined up right and a nice soft landing, it works out. But if they ignore everything they've ever been told and just say, I'm gonna blow this thing off in there fast as I can and make for a hard landing, it doesn't work out good, you know what I mean? And I've had a few people in this industry that I took a hard approach to, not many, but I can think of 4 or 5 right now, and it never worked out for me. You know, I always ended up going back apologizing or saying, hey, I didn't come across right, but I remember one time I had it at track counting with the weekly show. A lot of these guys, you know, when they got trouble, they wanna get out of the car and start something right then. You know what I mean? But if they'd wait a few minutes, it'd be all right, you know? And, one time I went in the press box at Tri-County, and there was a bee's nest right above the door. And I thought, well, I can't go in there with that. So, yeah, I got me a broom handle and I knocked it down. And of course, there's a swarming all over it. And the Lord spoke to me. He said, if you'll use that illustration in driver's meeting, it'll help them boys. And I couldn't wait till driver's meeting because I had something new that the Lord had showed me. You know what I mean?
Right.
I wasn't smart enough to come up with that. But I had to wait about 30 minutes before I could go in that press box to let them bees calm down, you know. And I shared that in the driver's meeting, and you know what? It registered with several of them. Hey, when you go in there and stir up a hornet's nest, wait a few minutes before you go, you know, before you go jump in there. And so just little things like that. You know, we got a lot of little sayings, you know, everybody has in the South. You know, we got little sayings here and there that we call, but that was one thing there that the Lord showed me to do, and that's just one of many. But I could talk all day, but really, the Lord's helped guide me. When I let Him, He helps.
Yeah, when you let, there's the key.
Yeah, he's got a lot of good ideas. He
Sure does.
Yeah.
So, this past week, it got released that you have acquired the Southern All-Star Series. Number one, congratulations. And also, I want to really know is how did you acquire it and what made you want it, especially with it being such a prestigious name around here?
Well, like I said, we got a phone call from Matt Wagner back in April, or heard that, I can't remember if he called or maybe Dwayne Keith called, but anyhow, we got a message that they was interested in selling it, and there was some people that was also, I was surprised, there was 3 or 4 people actually interested in buying it, and but some of them had the intent of buying it and just shutting it down, and you know, I don't know, I hadn't really thought about it, but Southern All-Stars has got a 43-year history, you know, I mean, it's been going a long time, and a lot of racing, a lot of people grew up with that series, you know, that's my age, and you know, it's no secret I don't have Tri-County anymore. We wasn't able to keep it last year, and everybody says, well, how do you have time to do that? Well, my Southern Nationals, the Schaefer's Oil Southern Nationals, is only 3 weeks in the month of July, and then the Spring Nationals is 4 or 5 weeks, depending on the weather. So that's about 8 weeks basically out of the year that I have the series, and you know, the other weekends are available. So that's sort of the thought process was, you know, I don't have the racetrack no more, and so I think we can make it work. But I knew about Southern All-Stars, and of course we all do, and I've been fortunate enough to run them a few times over the years, but when you get to looking at the history, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
And I think Ronnie Johnson has got the most wins of anybody, and Riley Hickman and Clint Smith are tied with the most championships
I
at
think
4.
So, yeah.
And but I don't know how many different drivers have raced in it, you know, over the years, and so not many businesses you can get with a history, and I don't know, it's just myself was interested. Of course, Joe Demby, you know, we're together on about everything we do, and American Race Tires was interested. There's a lot of people. I had another guy this weekend at Sonoya come up, and he's been a sponsor of many cars over the years, and he's like, hey, when you get ready to do that, call me, you know. So it's just, it wasn't just, there again, it's like the Southern Nationals, it wasn't just me. There's a group of people that are interested in seeing it keep on going, and there's definitely a place for it. A lot of racetracks that never get to have Super Late Model races, and we're gonna try to take care of them. Anybody that wants to book one, we're gonna go race with them if we can.
Yeah. I remember, you got to realize, way back before Lucas, World Outlaws and all this stuff, Southern All-Stars to me was the series.
Yes.
I can remember them coming to Atomic you know, and it's like, man, this is a big deal. This is all the big dogs, you know.
Yep.
So it does have a history, and it's a prestige about it. It really does.
Well, and you think about who started it. I mean, when I think of Southern All-Stars, the first two names comes to my mind is B.J. Parker and Joe Lee Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, those guys was racers. And, you know, the first two tracks I think of when I think about Southern All-Stars is Talladega and Cleveland.
Yeah.
You know, and that's so you had that was two main staples, and fortunately we still got Talladega, but Cleveland's no longer there. But you know, a lot of people don't know, but if I'm correct, I believe I'm right that the first year the Hava Tampa series actually started in doing co-sanction races with Southern All-Stars. They had some of them together.
Mm-hmm.
So Dixie Speedway is right there to me on that list with those, with Talladega and Cleveland, you know. But yeah, Southern All-Stars. One neat thing that was talking about my racing career, after I got out of the four-cylinder pony cars, the first super late model race I ever actually ran was a Southern All-Stars race at Talladega. So I didn't get the luxury of going somewhere and racing weekly or
Yeah,
whatever.
you
We
just
just
throwed you right off in the deep
just
end.
went right in there. And I'll never forget it. BJ was taking the top 20 after qualifying, and I qualified 21st. And somebody in that top 20 wasn't able to start the race, so they come down and said, "Hey, you're automatically in." So I didn't have to run a B main, which is probably the reason I was in, because
Yeah.
I know they'd have passed me if I'd have had to race a B main. But that was my first race. I don't know. I know I finished 3 or 4 laps down, but I remember James Klein was the winner.
Mm.
And so the next night we went to Rome, and I'd never been that fast in my life. And the transmission went out, and I was tickled to death. Ready to go home.
Got to think about this and everything.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Ray, we're going to split it off here. We're going to hit you with the quick time presented by PPM Racing Products.
Okay.
It's just going to be a series of questions just about you, and you got to answer them as fast as you can.
Okay.
So,
See if you can put it on the pole.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You ready, Mr. Ray?
Yeah.
All right. What's your favorite color?
Red.
What's your favorite type of music?
Gospel.
Favorite ice cream?
Strawberry.
Fair enough. Ford or Chevy?
Ford.
If you're on a road trip, what's your go-to snack and drink?
Peanut butter crackers and milk.
That's a good combination. What's your go-to pizza topping?
Beef.
If you more of a pie or cake man?
Pie.
And what's your favorite soda?
Sweet tea.
All right, then.
That ain't
There
a
it is.
soda, is it?
No.
Okay.
But
It'll work.
it's good enough. All right.
Did I qualify?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Right on the pole here.
Oh yeah, we can hang out together.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. That sounds pretty good. So you've been a racer, a promoter. Now you've got into the tire business. You give us, if you don't mind, give us a little background of how you come about that. I mean, it's a pretty big deal for you now.
It is. So 2014, I believe it was, when I was driving for Keith and Tater, the Masters Belt house car, and they had made a decision to shut the house car program down. And it wasn't 2 or 3 weeks after that, I got a call from American Race Tires. Scott McAdoo actually called me, and he said, "Hey, are you still interested in becoming a tire distributor?" And at one point back in 2007, it was talked about then. So we had a 7-year period there that it didn't get discussed. And I said, "Man, I don't know if I am or not." And currently the distributors at that time was, I think Jeff Treese and Tom Sandel was the American Racer distributors at that time. And something, I guess, was coming about that they wasn't going to be distributors no more. And anyhow, I said, "Man, I don't know. I haven't thought about it." And this was in April. And he said, we'd like to make a decision by October so we could announce it at PRI.
Right.
And I said, okay, so we'll talk about it. And well, like 3 weeks later, he called back, hey, have you made your mind up? I'm like, well, what happened to this October?
Yeah, exactly.
And so anyhow, at that point, I, the time speeded up on us. But anyhow, we decided we'd try it and see what could happen, because I didn't know really where the racing was going. And I do a lot of stuff, but like nothing's guaranteed. It's all weather related, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I don't know, just trying to line yourself up with things to do. And so we took on the distributorship of American Racer South, and we got 9 states that we cover in the Southeast, dirt and asphalt. And I didn't really want the asphalt side of it to begin with. I said, just give that to somebody else. You know, He said, no, it comes with it if you want it. And Scott Juneau, I'd mentioned his name too. Him and Scott McAdoo both was the ones we ended up meeting with. And but anyhow, so now we actually have 7 or 8 asphalt tracks that we service as well, and I have to work about 4 or 5 of them a year.
Yeah.
I've got to where I enjoy that. It's something different. It's a different group of people.
Yeah, it is.
They're looking for 1/8 and 1/4 inches of stagger instead of 1 and 2 inches. You know, so,
Yeah. It's
so
different.
It's a different, finer line, but you know, you can learn a lot there. A lot of things across there are still racing. You know, so but anyhow, just been trying to grow it. You know, American Racer's got a great product, and we tried to keep the cost as low as we could, and keep the compounds to where they'll last, you know, longer. Just try to keep people racing as long as they can for the least amount of money. So I'm
Right,
trying to
right.
do.
Absolutely.
What would you say is your most popular tire?
You know, really the modified tires are probably any of our 8-inch stuff, you know, pony cars, modifieds, open wheels. They do a really good job. But, you know, for our late model stuff, the Pro 2s that we developed a few years ago for the crate guys and the weekly racing, it's just amazing what that tire's been able to do as far as saving people money. Guys are getting, you know, 4 or 5 races off of a right rear tire, where we used to maybe get 1 or 2 off of a 48, you know.
Yeah, that's a
So,
great thing.
It's not as fast on the stopwatch at the beginning of the night, but now throughout the night, like during the race, it'll actually run the same speed as a 48 or 1350, just because it don't slow down.
Yeah.
It's just a consistent compound that'll run the same speed about all night, you know, and where the other stuff may be faster earlier and then slow down, it'll just sit right there and run. You can run it hard the whole night, and it's way less than our premium tires, you know, so. And we've been able to sponsor tracks out of it. There's money in it to keep racetracks and series going too, so it's, the Pro 2 is really the only tire that we have that, like, everybody that touches it benefits. And that's the thing about it, is the racetracks like it because obviously we can give them support. The racers like it because they don't have to buy so many.
Yeah.
And it is less expensive too. And so it's just everybody involved. And we actually make a little money off of it too. So, I mean, everybody that touches it, you know, it does good. And it's caught on. We have tracks in Georgia, Winder Barrow, Toccoa, and Livonia was our first 3 tracks to do it. And then next thing you know, Lawrence has added it. And then the Red Clay series and the GM 602 series added it. And then Joseph Rush with the American AllStar crates, they've added it. And, you know, it's just been, you know, nobody's making any money racing.
Yeah.
You're just trying to do something that you love the least expensive as you can.
Right, right.
Well, I appreciate that approach to it and that outlook on it, where it ain't where it benefits everybody instead of just at the end or at
Yeah.
the top of it, you know.
Well, you know, there's three things in racing that, and I use this a lot, and people that talk to me more than pretty often probably get tired of hearing it, but, you know, tires, gas, and motels is three things that, you know, when you check out of a motel, they don't give you nothing for that key. You know, so things like gas, when you dump it in the car, you ain't gonna get nothing out of that.
Yeah.
You might sell a tire for 20 or 30 bucks maybe after you use it to somebody, but most of the time that money's gone too. So, so just trying to, you know, I hear people complain about shocks and these big haulers and all that, but most of these guys that buy these haulers is an investment, like a second mortgage or something, and if they take care of it, they can get their money back out of that, or maybe make a little off of it. And shocks, you know, I would argue that the shocks ain't no more expensive today than they was back in the 90s, and everybody looks at me cross-eyed when I say that, but the thing about it was, back in the 90s when we was racing Tampa, if you went up in the truck, we probably had 50 or 60 AFCO or Pro shocks hanging
Yeah.
on the wall. And there's all 125, 30 bucks a piece.
That's what I was gonna say. Most of them didn't realize how many shocks you had in that
Yeah,
truck.
and if you added all that up with the hardware and outfitted them all with springs, I mean, you had about $5,000-6,000 in them.
Yeah.
And nowadays, we got one set of shocks that are adjustable, and it's the same money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, everybody got different opinion. I guess it just shows we're getting old if we can remember all that.
Well, back to the tar deal. You mentioned the Pro tube, where I guess you call it a spec tire. And the difference. What would a driver feel the difference between it and a premium tar, say, on the right rear, if he just was practicing or tested?
Well, it depends on, what we've noticed is it depends on track conditions and the engine combination. So a lot of the guys with lower horsepower put them on and actually run faster, just because it sort of frees them up. But it's not a real hard tire if you drummed it. It's mid to upper 40s on a drummer, 46 to 48, something like that. But really, when I do all this tire testing with people that go back and forth between brands, it's really as good as like data acquisition, because our tires, for some reason, seem to tighten the cars up. And I part of the blame for that, because we've tested them all these years, and I've always wanted the car to be as tight as I could get it on corner entry. That don't mean that's what you need, but that's just what I've liked. And so there's half the field that needs to be tighter. So they, you know, if I have a driver call me and says, "Hey, man, your tires are 6/10 quicker than the other ones," you know, I'm like, well, I'm glad you feel that way, but most time that's not the case. You know, all these manufacturers of everything have copied each other over the years, and there's really not a huge amount of difference on the stopwatch. And plus, we can't be way faster. If I go to a racetrack and I tell them, "Hey, I'd like to put these tires in the rule book," and if it's 3 or 4 tenths faster, they're not gonna let me in the rule book.
It don't know nothing but cost trouble.
So we've spent a lot of time trying to make sure they run equal, you know, more than we have trying to get them faster. And, but you know, back to what I was saying, lower horsepower cars, they need freed up anyhow most of the time, so they'll actually run faster. But if you got a guy that's so tight he can't turn, and then he bolts our tires on, it makes it even worse, then he's gonna, you know, so you gotta I've always said I was gonna make a t-shirt, and I've never done it. It says it's either loose or tight, you know. And, so
I need one that says it don't lie. The car don't lie. It keeps doing the same thing.
but it's just track conditions, you know. If you go somewhere that's hooked up what we call track record speed, I mean, it's different. That in that condition will be a little looser. If you go somewhere that it's dry, slick, and they need side bite, then we may be a little better. So, but it's just most of the time though, on a scale of 1 to 10, it ain't but like a 2 or 3. You might could maybe a right rear bottom rod up one hole or 2 or 3 turns on the brake adjuster and fix it, you know. So there's no major difference. We have guys, I use Brandon Overton, for example. I mean, this weekend at Sonoya, he qualified on Hoosiers and raced on Americans, you know. So sometimes it's easier to do that than it is to make adjustments on the car. And I remember back when the Stacker 2 was going on, the Goodyear days was involved. I went to Green Valley one year, and I think I qualified on Goodyears. I ran a heat race on Hoosiers, and I raced on Americans. And I think we ran second in the feature, or maybe won it, I don't know. But we had a good weekend, and I mainly just done it because I could. I had them all, so you know what I mean. But you can make them all work at the end of the day. You just got to do what's best for your program and what, you know, when I have racetracks call me and they say, what should my tire rule be? My first answer to them is, how much do you want your guys to pay for tires? And if you're not worried about their budget, then open it up, let everybody run. You
Well,
know
that's what my question was going to, is you got some tracks that allow the Pro 2 and the 48. Is I guess what I was asking for the racer, are they gonna know that big a difference on the clock?
The 48 should be better early in the night, you know, just because it's premium rubber, and there's no difference in the construction. The mold's the same. But on paper, it should be. But there again, if you take a guy with a 602 and early in the night he's too tight, he may make the Pro 2.
Right.
But in a perfect world, if a car's balanced and the driver's doing everything he should, the 48 should be better qualifying for sure. But later in the night, when that 48 maybe slows down toward the end, that Pro 2 will be right there with it. So,
And we've had the pleasure of selling American races this year. And thank you for letting us do that. It's been an amazing experience, getting to understand and learn the knowledge of these tires. But I'm gonna ask you the question I get asked the number one every time somebody wants a right rear tire. How do I know if I need a 48 or a 56 on the right rear?
well,
Especially with the Pro 356 as well.
yeah. So the best thing is, there again, depends on the track surface. If you're in East Tennessee, I'll use I-75 for example, or Smoky Mountain, or even Dixie Speedway for that. Those tracks, that clay that those tracks have is probably the hardest dirt the good Lord ever made. And those are places that typically a hard tire is going to run better no matter what. So when I go to a place like that, you know, if you'll notice when these tracks put in these tire rules, their lap times don't slow down. Like over the past, we've had hard right rear tires, and then we've had tracks that had open tire rule. Well, the guys just tighten their cars up to adjust to the hard tire, and they still run the same speed.
Yeah.
So I would think one thing, it depends on the dirt. Now, Wartburg, I use them for example, or like a brown dirt anywhere like in Ohio, Midwest, or maybe down in Florida where there's loose grit on top of the racetrack, or say a Screven, you know. Tear-offs will tell you a lot. I accuse some racers of not racing anywhere they don't have to use tear-offs, you know what I mean? And the older I get, I'm becoming one of those. But you know, most time if you're somewhere and you need a lot of tear-offs throughout the night, then that softer tire is almost guaranteed to be better.
Yeah.
And if you're going somewhere that you don't need a lot of them, those are just little ways to determine it. But 90% of the time, the softer tires should run better for 1 or 2 laps for qualifying. But come race time, you almost always have to put something with an edge on the right rear, you know, for the feature.
Yeah.
But I got into that at 75 this year. I was down there, and this guy asked me, said, for the heat race, he was starting on the outside pole, and he says, what would you put on the right rear? I said, a 56. See, it's an 8-lap heat race. And he said, really? I said, yeah, because if I can make it 1 lap, they're in trouble.
Yeah, yep,
And he ended up straightaway
yeah.
because everybody else is on the softer stuff. That track is, like you said, when it's hard, you need that edge.
Well, I'll use Dixie Speedway for example, and I-75. They got the same dirt. I've graded both of them this past year, and you can lower the motor grader blade and sparks flies, you know, if you ain't careful, if you ain't got it wet. But Marshall Green and me and them, they do a great job at Dixie Speedway, and they done this Crate Nationals about a month ago, I guess it was, and they had an open tire rule. And there's a few people give them a little bit of slack over that, but anybody that knows Dixie Speedway knows you ain't gonna use but 2 tires anyhow. So it didn't really matter that it was open. You're just gonna run what you need. You know what I mean?
Right.
And there's guys that still showed up and ran that whole weekend on 4 or 5 tires. They just so that the perception that it was open, it didn't really matter. You know what I mean? So I just encourage everybody to put some thought in where they're going. You know, and I've seen guys with older tires run good, and then there's nights where new tires run good, and a lot of that's determined by like I say, the track surface, the time of year. Like right now, the times change. It's getting dark at 6 o'clock, and some of the promoters have a hard time figuring out they need not as much water this time of year as they do in the summer. You know, and so tracks are wetter, so you can run them longer this time of year. But during the summer, when you hot lap and there's a black streak already, you can stay on the hard tires.
Yeah.
That's like reminding me back in the day at Atomic, there wasn't no tire rule, but there was a tire rule.
There was a tire rule. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, you had to have a hard one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They just made it open to make you feel good.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, everything was in pretty good shape in the southeast between Hoosier and American both. We pretty much had 3 compounds, and that was all everybody was running. And then a couple of years ago, when they come out with this national deal, it sort of scrambled everything. So everybody's scrambling. I think the southeast didn't have a problem. We've talked about that with both brands. We had what we needed, but when this national deal come out, it scrambled everybody's thought process. And so we're gradually getting back to that. You know, I think maybe by next year, hopefully we're back down to just a couple. So hopefully it'll be better.
Is there any upcoming changes in the tires, far-wise as taking some away that you're not going to be selling anymore, or any new stuff coming out?
Not really. We're always, you know, working, I am, to try to figure out ways to lower everybody's costs. That's just my deal, personally. But the biggest thing I'm trying to do is encourage weekly racetracks, you know, to do all they can to save the racers as much money as they can.
Absolutely.
So they can race all year long. You know, having a track myself, the one thing we noticed at Tri-County, the 12 years we was there, the first year we had the track, we noticed that we had a drop-off in attendance after the 4th of July, and especially in August, September, when school starts back, kids are needing school supplies, and let's face it, I mean, a lot of people's budget that they have for racing runs out as the year goes. And so I've just always tried to come up with things that could let people's money go longer in the year, you know. And so that's the biggest thing I'm doing, is just trying to work with individual racetracks. We got one track right now, you know, I got 9, like I said, we got 9 states, and I probably got 8 of them that thinks the Pro 2 is really, really good. But I've got one racetrack that it's not as on the right rear. The guys are wiring them out every week. So I'm making recommendations to him that he goes to the Pro 4, just so they don't have to buy a tire every week, you know.
Right.
It's hard to build a tire to suit the whole southeast because, like I said, the closer you are to the ocean, there's more sand. Anytime there's sand, it's like sandpaper, it wears out tires. But if you go to a track like Sonoya, where we was at this past weekend, that dirt down there, like a Magnolia, Mississippi, or anywhere there's that gray gumbo, you know, them guys can wear tires. They can run a set all year just about, you know, because it doesn't hurt them at all. So the Georgia tracks grind on them quite a bit, you know. South Carolina, anywhere in the Carolinas, you know, is going to grind on them. So,
Good place to scuff tires. Carolinas.
So we're just trying to really tailor the tires to the different racetracks as we get more people calling, just trying to do what we can to make the racers keep coming.
Yeah. So, I mean, tailoring tires to different customers and even to these different tracks, how important is the knowledge of grooving these tires? Because, and that's another big thing is I get questions on how do I need to groove this? Which way do I do it for the right front or the left rear? You know, and a lot of times, you know, I tell them, I give them ideas and, you know, stuff that you've told me and everything. But there's some people who just, they put the spec tire, like the 48 or even the Pro 356, they throw it on there, don't touch it.
Yep.
You know, how critical is that knowledge of knowing how to groove the tire to the track?
Well, it really, temperatures is, I think, what you go off of as much as anything. You see a lot of the good racers run around with those little guns that shoots the temperature of the tire. And, you know, grooving and siping tires does two things. It helps, the ultimate goal is to keep that tire running, you know, 180 to 190 degrees, about the same temperature as your engine. You know what I mean? That's something, all that stuff seems to work good around that range. And so grooves and sipes can help the tire get to that point, but they can also help keep it at that point if it's getting hotter. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the goal is to just keep it in its operating temperature, and sometimes we got to groove and sipe to get it to that, and then some we got to, you know, we used to go to Brunswick years ago before they changed it, and it was that peanut oil
Peanut
like
oil,
pavement,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And that's really where drilling tires first started at. Back then, back in the 90s with Avatampas, we would actually put a tire on down there and scuff it for the following year. Like, it was so hard on right rear tires. So if we was racing and we knew we was might gonna come back next year, we would go out and scuff one, and we'd lay it in the top of the attic at the shop and for a whole year, and then that would be our tire for next year. So it just depends. But biggest thing to do is take a look around, be observant. I remember one year at the Show Me 100, I didn't make the show. There was several years I didn't make it. But I hung out after the race so I could go look at Billy Moyer's tires in Victory Lane, see how he had them cut up, you know, and just try to look at what your neighbors are doing. If something's running fast, I mean, you can go talk to them. They might help you, you know. Or a lot of guys will throw stuff away at the racetrack. You can go over and pick the promoter.
Yeah.
The promoter will be happy for you to haul off any of them,
Yeah.
you know. So just hang out, and when they throw one away, go over and pick it up, take it home with you. And you got you a pattern to go
He'll
by.
probably help you load it.
Yeah. So just common sense, you know, just think about it, you know, what you're doing. And but, you know, grooving and siping, there's guys that literally keep up with the sipe tread depths. They'll sipe a tire 3 or 4 30 seconds deep, and then they'll go home and they'll record how many thousandths the sipe wore during the race. And I mean, you can make it as big a project as you want. Probably one of the best tire guys right now that I know of in the industry is DJ Williams. He's Ricky Thornton's tire guy. And I noticed him the other night taking pictures of his tires after the race, you know. So he's got permanent record of them, what they look like before and after. But you can literally make tires a full-time project, from the way you clean them to the way you grind them. And, you know, if you think about it, if you have a good night, that's really the only thing that touches the racetrack.
Yeah.
You know, so you got 4 little patches that are about basically 3 or 4 inches wide, and you got to take care of them. And so it's very important, the grooving and siping is.
Yeah. And you was talking about like the temperatures and stuff of these tires, which obviously if they get hot, they grow. And another question that people ask, because a lot of when I sell tires, it's chalk mark based. And some of the guys, like, how do you blow it up and get it to the size of what the chalk mark is? Like, how is the chalk mark determined? Like, to what PSI do you put them tires to get that?
So what I generally do when I mount a tires, I'll blow it up to ever how much it takes to to seat it on the bead first. But most time, if it'll blow out there, I'll blow it up to about 25 pound, and then I let it back down to whatever corner I'm going to. In other words, if it's a right rear tire, I'll let it back down to 11 or 12 pound, and then I'll measure it. And if that measurement's not what I want it to be, in other words, if I need it bigger, then I may put 30 or 40 back in. I don't never go over 40, but I may put 30 or 40 in it, and then let it back down and see if that helped it. Sometimes you can get what you need right then. Sometimes if it's not as big as it needs to be, then I may put 30 back in it and go to lunch and come back, you know. So you don't want to forget about it, or you end up with something way bigger. But just work with them, massage them. But most of them chalk marks should be pretty accurate at what they are. If you'll blow it up to 25 pound and let it back down, should be pretty close.
Yeah. Okay. Now the last question we got for you here. What is the in your position at American Racer South, what for you and American Racer, what does the future look like for you in the tires and also promotion? I mean, obviously you're taking over another series.
Yep.
So what is the future for you in the tires and series game?
Well, I think the tires is bright, the future there. I mean, we had a distributor conference call about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I guess, and hey, everybody is excited. We got plenty of production going on right now. They've told us to, keep the open for business sign on and get all the business we could, and they'd build it. So it's an exciting time up there. A couple of years ago, everybody was having trouble getting things, but one thing that got us behind a little bit is, as people that race knows, there's different tread patterns with these molds. And so when the National Tire Rule came about, it limited us to one mold. Basically, it had to be the BT, which is the block treaded spec. So we had all these tires we had to make out of that one mold. So last year, American Race Tires purchased another set of molds, and we've also got a second shift working again, because it's hard to get people to work, and they're a big company. They got over 700 employees, and when you're down 130 or 40 people, it makes a big difference. Yeah. So, but now they've got really since last March, really they've had a second shift going and a second set of molds, and I've got more tires right now in inventory than I've had in the 9 years I've been doing this. So we're excited. There's plenty available, and that was another thing too that was hurting the tires wearing, and this was for both brands. A lot of times we would get tires made on Monday, painted on Tuesday, right, cured on Wednesday, shipped on Thursday, and we'd have them on the track by Friday. And so they just didn't have a cure time. So now things are sort of back to normal. I feel like they're back to normal, where tires has got, I feel like a good month and a half, 2 months of cure time. That makes them last longer. Yeah. To where they're just not wearing out every time you boat them on. So I think that helps. But no, I mean, we're busy with the tires, and more racetracks continue to come on board every year, and so we're excited about that. I've got 2 tracks to go meet with this week. So, and of course, we'll go into PRI, and we're always excited about going there. And you never know who's going to walk in the booth when you're at PRI. So you guys are way familiar with that. So. Yeah. But, as far as promotions goes, I'm working on schedules for the Southern Nationals and the Spring Nationals, and Southern AllStars and Red Clay, all 4 of them. So you forgot to ask about that, but we acquired the Red Clay series last year too. So we're looking forward to working with 602 racers and super late models both, and I'm gonna try to have a lot of them on the same night. So that'll be good, and you never know, we may have an enduro class for it's over too. So we're just always thinking, and just trying to do stuff that makes sense, to where when you leave the track, everybody's happy, and that don't always happen. It's no different trying to win every race you go to. You can't win them all, but it sure is fun to try. Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do.
Well, at least it should be fun.
Yeah. But that's
I
what
used
we're
to ask
trying
that
do.
question all the time. We having fun yet?
Yeah.
They'd look at me like I was crazy. Usually I'd answer, not yet.
Well, Keith and Tater Masters used to tell me all the time, Ray, you're making this way too hard, you know. And there's a lot of truth to that. So,
But I got one last question for you.
yeah.
That I don't know if I don't even know. I bet that don't even know what your nickname is.
Oh, I got a bunch of them.
How did you get the nickname Tar
It's
Heel
according to
Tiger?
what hat he's wearing.
Yeah,
What
that's right.
nickname? You know, it's Papaw. It's Papaw.
Yeah, that's right. That was given to me by Ozzy Altman,
Yeah.
the announcer. Him and I don't know if Brownie come up with it or he come up with it, but anyhow, Brownie used to aggravate me. That somebody took a picture of me in a car one time, and I guess I was really focused on what I was fixing to do or scared to death or something. I don't know, but anyhow, I had a real straightforward look, and Brownie said I had that eye of the tiger look, you know. So but I don't know if I had that or not. I was probably sitting there trying to hold my breath, you know, or something. But
I was going to ask you afterwards, but how's Brownie and Cheryl doing?
well, last time I talked to her, they're doing fine. I talked to Cheryl actually about 2 weeks ago. She's looks good, doing good, and Brownie is too. So they still keep up with everything
Yeah.
in racing, and especially with Jonathan. You know, they really help jumpstart him too, and myself. You know, and
Yeah.
of course Jonathan's just had an amazing career. If he quits right now and never wins another race, I mean his resume and that Southern AllStars resume is about the same length.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Jonathan does a great job, and Brownie, that's him and Cheryl. They keep up with everything I'm doing, and him too. So, yeah, they're doing good.
Good people.
Yep, sure are. Done a lot for the sport.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good people in this sport,
Yeah.
not just them, but a lot of good promoters and racers, and you make lifelong friendships, and that's what's really good about
I
it.
had a fellow tell us one time. Actually, me and Rain, and I think was you with us over at Barry Wright's. Guy told us when we went over to the race and went by Barry's. And guy told us, he said, the longer you're in this, the more people you get to know.
Yeah,
He said, there's just one thing about it. I looked at him, I said, what's that? He said, you know more people. You have more relationships, and therefore you're going to have more losses.
yeah,
But he said, enjoy them while they're here.
yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Most
that's
important thing is to be ready for that.
Right. Yes, sir. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this is where we're going to take you to the product spotlight. Today's product spotlight is the American Racer tires. We offer them in all different compounds and sizes. We got them from Pro 2s and Pro 4s, Spec 48s, Pro 356s. We have your Cash 56 tires, and we have a bunch of ribs for your late model applications. We also have the 26.5, 27.5 hards and a 27.5 extra hard. And we got your Mod Mini tires all the way from compound 23, 44s, and 48s. So make sure to get with us on all of your American Racer tire needs. Give us a call at 865-354-9669. Or in just a few short weeks, you'll be able to order your own online on ppmracingproducts.com. Well, Mr. Ray, we greatly appreciate you coming by and doing this podcast. Coming down this far, we appreciate you very much. Is there anybody you or all the people you would like to thank that's, put you in the position you are today?
Well, I just, there again, we'd be here all day, but there's a lot of people. But I just appreciate you guys having me, and, everything that PPM does. I mean, you guys been making great products for a long time, and, you're in the same boat I am. We're just trying to do something that you love and let people do it the safest, the best way they can, and the most affordable.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we got a lot in common. And, but just, appreciate everybody that's ever voted on our tire, or everybody that's ever come to one of my races, or ever bought a ticket, or ever raced with me, or whatever. I just appreciate everybody's support, and looking forward to a little bit of off season, not much. I think I get 2 weekends off, but and then looking forward to next year for sure. So,
Absolutely. Well, guys, we appreciate y'all stopping by here at the PPM Winter Circle podcast. For any and all of your parts needs, go to ppmracingproducts.com, or if you have any tech questions and need some help give us a call at 865-354-9669. And as always, guys, we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Hey, subscribe, like.
Hit that button.
Come on, get up on the well, go in there, you just smell poop or see Jesus. Let's get it done.